Welcome to The Prize Inside. The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
At the stage, welcome everybody to the 1% Tribe edition of The Prize Inside. Hopefully you're having a beautiful day. We had a great day here at the old Myers compound. It was great. Next week I'll have, so I've showed you, my brother that's been on here has like a side business of whiskey barrels. And so we got some, and I was able to create some planters. Got some blueberries and raspberries kind of going. So I'm pretty pumped about that. It's looking good in my little herb garden. So we have in our house, we have our regular garden. Rachel's kind of the head cheese of that. And then I get to do, I'm doing the herb garden. I'm learning a lot of the Michigan ones that have the medicinal properties to them. However, you know, they might not be all the ones you hear about in the news, and that, you know, like those kind of things. So like I'm learning like mugwort and lobelia's going pretty good. So I have a few different ones. They all have some medicinal properties to them, but very easy to grow. They've come back a few times. Lemongrass is the only one, you know, you better do something in the wintertime or else it's not going to be around. And the plant is so beautiful, but lemongrass, it's a cool one. So remember that one. Get some lemongrass, stick it in, use it for teas, all kinds of stuff. That would be good. But before we begin, I want to make sure that we remember to thumbs up, like, and subscribe on Rumble, The Prize Inside a Chiropractor's Journey. On YouTube, it's The Prize Inside You, but if you look up The Prize Inside a Chiropractor's Journey, you will find that. You will find the channel. Go up, like, subscribe to it. And then my last one that I love to do, that keeps growing really slowly, but it's tribe1.substack.com. So tribe, TRIB1.substack.com. That's where you can get a newsletter of all we're doing. And I figured out how to do a live show on the Substack. So not right now, I'm streaming to that in hopes that you can catch it on there and it'll come as an email like directly to you. So that's my hope with the Substack. It's not one to, you know, do any major stuff, but it is enough where for the occasional newsletter that, you know, comes in there. Kind of like, hopefully everybody enjoyed my the 3 episodes of epigenetics with Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton as the key features. I thought that was pretty fun for me, just to get everybody kind of understanding what the epigenetics is. And each and every time we do something, even in this physical area, you're literally changing your genes. And that's what I want to make sure you understand. Like, I'm not just going over these different these conditions, right? So each week we do thoughts, toxins, trauma. I took a little hiatus, did 3 episodes on epigenetics because that's a pretty big, intense one. But then after that, always think in minds of those 1% improvement each and every day, right? Because that's what really changes. That's what changes the entire mindset. When we do things, when we improve ourselves each and every time, we really get to a spot that is amazing. We're the only functional, supposedly some kind of machine, but how many machines can literally change their cellular structure, improve all of those things? Only something that's alive, right? With an innate intelligence within it. So with that said, let's talk about this tonight. This is going to be the elbow unlocked, pain and performance in the kinetic change. So what we're going to go over is a little bit of there's a lot of conditions that go with the elbow. So we're going to go through a lot of those so you can kind of understand where maybe your elbow issue is kind of sitting. And with that, with the sitting of the so whatever's happening in the elbow, you can kind of understand what's happening. And then we kind of go through some really good stretches and ways to go about it that people don't realize that's there, and a couple good stories along the way. I have one. I'll wait until we get going, but I have one on the elbow that I have one personally. I'll start with first though. So some of you know I played college football and was a nose guard, right? So nothing, Division III stuff, very, very fun. Loved every aspect of it. One of the things that happened is over time, I really wasn't an injury kid, but I kept noticing my elbow wasn't getting, the extension. Maybe it was from, bench pressing or actual football. So eventually I couldn't like totally extend your elbow out, right? So it can't extend your elbow out. So I love this story because it's hilarious. So one of the teachers I had in school, his name was Dr. Mitch Malley. He was at one time he was a chiropractor for the 49ers. So he was really, really good at teaching feet adjustments, like chiropractic adjustments to the subluxations, I like calling them, in the wrist, elbow, shoulder, knee, hip, all of those. He's really good at the spine, but also you had, he was an expert in those. And so we're taking this class, and I remember this kid. I can't remember his last name, but his name was Jeff. He's a chiropractor in Hawaii, little skinny guy. So he was my partner, and we're learning the elbow. So we go through, and I can't extend this elbow. I'm like, not all the way. It's just kind of bent. I just got used to it, right? So, and it fire you up pretty good if somebody messed with it. So we're in this elbow class, and Jeff decides, hey, can I feel, your elbows? I'm like, sure. So he does the right elbow, and he feels it, and he's like, oh, that's good. And then comes over to the left elbow, and it's completely kind of locked up. He's like, man, that seems like a problem. I go, yeah, let's not mess with that today when we're learning the new technique, right? So we go in, and of course, us chiropractors know that most of any chiropractor injuries is when you're trying to learn how to move things. So a lot of chiropractors have chiropractor school injuries because you have buddies like Jeff. So Jeff, so anyway, so we learn the move, and Jeff adjusts my right elbow perfectly. And I'm like, oh, that was cool. So then he comes over to the left. He goes, let me just feel it. So he goes in there and he adjusts it. And oh my God, the pain. And keep in mind, I'm much, much larger than Jeff. He might have been a whole $140. I'm at the time about 270 pounds and just a really angry man after you adjust my elbow and it hurts like that. So once it stopped hurting and Jeff left the room, he had run because he knew I was going to kill him. But one of the things that was remarkable was after the pain was done, I could extend my elbow. I was like, whoa, that is crazy. It adjusted perfect. And then he was like, see. I was like, so wherever you're at, Jeff, Dr. Jeff, I'm sure. The Dr. Jeff, I'm sure, in Hawaii area. Hopefully you're in the Hawaii. That would be awesome. Thank you. Because my elbow has still been fantastic since then. I thought it was always going to not be moving that way. So, with that said, I got a little expertise on this elbow aspect of it. So, let us begin our night on the elbow unlocked. Add it to the stage. There we go. Pain performance in the kinetic chain. So, let's get rolling. All right. So what we're going to go over tonight is some common injuries to the elbow and how they kind of begin. So that's where the kinetic chain thing is. So just remember that as you go. Looking at things that you can do to improve your elbow issues like normal, nutritional solutions, because there are some. Okay. And the mindset, like we always go over to see where we want to go. All right. So we're going to go through these pretty quickly. I don't want to belabor each one. Remember this always. In holistic world, it's good to know. I guess it's good to know the condition's name, right? But in a sense, it doesn't matter. If the innate intelligence of the body in the elbow is giving you pain, then we have to reduce it through thoughts, toxins, or trauma, right? We got to find the cause, that what is interfering with the innate intelligence ability to give you an elbow that's working properly, wherever that might be. So just remember that when you go through and see these different things. Don't own these conditions, right? Don't own those conditions. That's one of the problems. Then your thought will actually get in your way, okay? But we're going to go through them just so you know where they're hurting. There's this thing called, so the elbow rarely suffers alone, which we'll talk about. Most elbow pain stems from repetitive microtrauma combined with upstream dysfunction in the neck, thoracic spine, scapula, or wrist, plus downstream grip and forearm imbalances. I would say 90% of the time, it's a cervical, a thoracic, a shoulder, or a wrist problem. Okay. So if somebody's having major elbow issues, that is one of the major things to kind of look at. Okay. So the first one we're going to talk about is called lateral epicondylitis, also known as tennis elbow. Okay. So this is what they call a tendon. When you see tendinopathy, which is tendinopathy is kind of a very inflamed tendon. Okay. So lateral epicondylitis. Epicondyle is the lateral side. Okay. So like when they say epicondyle, just so you can see this stuff, I've noticed so many people bring me reports on things that maybe their doctor has said, and they go, what is that? Right. Itis. Itis is inflammation. Okay. So this one is inflammation at the lateral on the outs. So you got the medial, it's kind of towards your heart, and then laterals on away from your heart. So the lateral side, the outside portion, is that epicondyle, which is part of the bone. Okay. So you don't have to know all that. You just have to know this hurts here. Okay. So that's what tennis elbow is. Okay. So it's usually caused by repetitive wrist extension and gripping, and then poor scapular control, which is poor shoulder control, leading to an overload. And then you could also have this elbow pain based on your neck and your upper back having issues first, right? And then it's usually pain with gripping, lifting, or wrist extension, okay? Medial epicondylitis, it's the opposite of this, kind of like on the inside of your elbow. This one they consider golfer's elbow. Now, they just put those in there because of the type of injury or the type of sport that they normally see it. You don't have to be a golfer or a tennis person to get this situation, okay? It's very similar. It's just on the inside at the medial epicondyle. It's very common in golfers, people who throw, right? Think Tommy John surgery, Okay, so think that way. And desk workers will get this because they're flexing and pronating with poor posture. Okay. This one's a distal biceps or triceps tendinopathy. So when they say distal, that means far away. So it's the furthest part. So it's at your elbow where your biceps and triceps attaches. This is when we have overload or insertions problems. So we have too much. This one could be very big if you're lifting for a living, quite a bit of stuff. My brother probably he just tore his biceps for his other bicep instead of this one. He has some he's got some biceps tendinopathy. He's had it for a long time. That's what you get when you don't stretch either, Ryan. Exactly. Okay. So anyway, so that's another one that's more pushing and pulling kind of situation. Okay. And so you're going to have it at the elbow is where it's going to hurt. Olecranon bursitis. Okay. This is the very tip of your elbow, right at the tip, like right kind of like funny bone type of situation. Okay. Inflammation or swelling at the bursa or the tip of the elbow. This is usually from trauma, like you've hit it, prolonged pressure or an infection. Then we have some different kinds of nerve entrapments. Okay, so we'll talk about that as well. But these are the ones you hear about a lot of times. So you have the radial tunnel syndrome, which is like tennis elbow. You have cubital tunnel syndrome, which a lot of you have heard of, which is ulnar nerve. And it's like your medial epicondylitis. So you could have an inflamed tendon that gets so bad that it creates an entrapment on this nerve because the nerves to your elbow are very out in the open and going around tendons quite a bit. So this will lead to sometimes tingling in the pinky and ring finger. And it's worse when you do elbow flexion. Now, some of these little nerve entrapments, you got to understand the big key is understanding that we get minor nerve entrapments all the time. The more you weight lift, do things, expand that muscle mass within the elbow, sometimes you can have these things. That's why it's super important to do some of the things we're going to do tonight. Okay. And just in general, like even if you don't have a major elbow issue tonight, then it could be something that you want to take care of, like take a look at like as you go. All right. Okay. But the big thing is the elbow is always the canary in the coal mine for your shoulder, upper back, and neck. So usually you have to get the neck and the shoulder and the back correct, or else it ain't going to be very good. Okay. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at, all right. Let me do some anatomy. So, okay. So let's look at this. Let's do this one. So we're going to run through the anatomy of the elbow. Let me get this going. Okay. So we're going to walk through this. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay. So let's walk through the anatomy of the elbow. Okay. All right. So you see how it moves? We have this like hinge joint and there's all this muscle there. Okay. Let's get to a good spot. Well, let me see where
humerus for the upper arm bone, the ulna, the larger bone of the forearm on the opposite side of the thumb, and the radius, the smaller bone of the forearm on the same side as the thumb. The elbow itself is essentially a hinge joint, meaning it bends and straightens like a hinge. But there is a second joint where the end of the radius or the radial head meets the humerus. This joint is complicated because the radius has to rotate as you turn your hand palm up and palm down, while at the same time it has to slide against the end of the humerus as the elbow bends and straightens.
Imagine in your head if you had to create a door that would swing open when just like a normal door hinge would, but you also needed that door to open like a garage door. It's kind of a weird thought process to think about, but it's literally two different styles of joint in the same joint. And that makes it super complex, but it also allows this beautiful complexity at the wrist. We're able to do things with our wrists and our shoulders that shouldn't be even possible, honestly. If like robots are going to have a hard time mimicking this joint. The same goes with our thumb.
To make this motion possible, the radial head is shaped like a smooth knob with a shallow cup at the end. This shallow cup fits against the capitellum, a rounded knob at the end of the humerus that forms part of the elbow joint. The smooth rim of the radial head is also covered with articular cartilage and glides against a small indentation in the ulna.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead quite a bit. And then we're going to go to this medial and lateral thing I was telling you about. Okay, so let's go here. He does a really good job on this section. Okay.
Joint are connected with a thin layer of connective tissue and form a structure called the joint capsule. The joint capsule is a watertight sac that surrounds the joint and contains lubricating fluid called synovial fluid. In the elbow, two of the most important ligaments are the medial collateral ligament and the lateral collateral ligament.
So those are the ones that kind of start getting irritated in lateral epicondylitis, medial epicondylitis, right? So that's what
the medial collateral ligament is on the inside edge of the elbow. The lateral collateral ligament is on the outside edge. Together, these two ligaments connect the humerus to the ulna and keep it tightly in place as it slides through the groove at the end of the humerus. These ligaments are the main source of stability for the elbow. They can be torn when there is an injury or dislocation to the elbow. If they do not heal correctly, the elbow can be too loose or unstable.
Right. So that's the biggest thing. Think about what those ligaments have to do, as it goes. Now I'm going to mute it. And then we're going to go a little bit further. You kind of get the idea of how this works. Okay. So I'll let it run a little bit more here on when he adds the biceps. So here we go.
Biceps muscle on the front of the arm to the radius. It allows the elbow to bend with force. You can feel this tendon crossing the front crease of the elbow when you tighten the biceps muscle.
Now, this is the picture I wanted to show you guys. And then on the on the podcast, right now we're looking at a kind of what we would say a side view of where the humerus is, where the biceps runs up into the shoulder, that a lot of people don't realize that it actually goes underneath your rotator cuff there. And look at the importance. So if you look at the shoulder, the side view of the shoulder, you have the shoulder blade or scapula, you have the clavicle, right? And then you have your humerus or the big long bone that's there. All three of those bones need to be in perfect position to allow your elbow to be where it needs to be as well for the force that we're asking the elbow to do. Okay.
The triceps tendon connects the large triceps muscle on the back of the arm.
And the triceps is super powerful, super, super powerful. And if you're watching on the video right now, you can see it has an attachment to the humerus and then a little bit into that scapula.
The ulna. It allows the elbow to straighten with force, such as when you perform a push-up. The muscles of the forearm cross the elbow and attach to the humerus. The outside or lateral bump just above the elbow is called the lateral epicondyle. Most of the muscles that straighten the fingers and wrist all come together in one tendon to attach in this area.
Check that out. Check the muscle mass. Your entire forearm, that Popeye the Sailor Man, the stronger your forearms, like we talk about, the more protection you can give yourself in your elbow and wrist as well, right? So we always looking for forearm grip strength kind of situations, because look at that muscle mass that has to be perfect to have good elbow and wrist function.
The inside or medial bump just above the elbow is called the medial epicondyle. Most of the muscles that bend the fingers and wrist all come together in one tendon to attach in this area. These two tendons are important because they are a common location of pain caused by a condition called tendinitis, or perhaps more accurately, tendinosis.
Right. So when you're looking now, if you're watching on the screen here, muscles lead into or morph into tendons. Okay. And those tendons are what inserts into the bone. That's the difference between a tendinitis or like a ligament sprain. It's like the ligaments that we were showing you before are just ligaments, bone to bone. A tendon is actually a muscle to a bone, if that makes sense. So when you hear tendinitis, it's a muscle to a bone. So it's different, right?
All of the nerves that travel down the arm pass across the elbow. Three main nerves begin together at the shoulder: the radial nerve, the ulnar nerve, and the median nerve. These nerves carry signals from the brain to the muscles that move the arm and hand. The nerves also carry signals back to the brain about sensations such as touch, pain, and temperature.
Yeah, this is crazy good. So watch, all of that neurology is the electrical wires that have to work perfectly to get all of your hands. Look at the genius of this. So you have all these different nerves, that are protected within there to move the muscles, to feel, to do all these things. That's why it's such an amazing situation how far your hand can be away from your body and you can still feel, touch, have grip strength, all of those things with all of those signals way out there. So that's huge to understand.
Some of the more common problems around the elbow involve problems with the nerves. Each nerve travels through its own tunnel as it crosses the elbow.
This is important to watch. So this is going to be the ulnar nerve.
Because the elbow must bend a great deal, the nerves must bend as well. Constant bending and straightening can lead to irritation or pressure on the nerves within their tunnels and cause problems such as pain, numbness, and weakness in the arm and hand.
Now, look at what that tunnel is created by. Okay. What is that tunnel created by? Tendon and muscle. There's also bone, of course, on the one side, but tendon and muscle. This will become important later as we look at like how we can improve our chances of having better elbows.
Conditions are sometimes called nerve entrapment or nerve compression syndromes. Traveling along with the nerves are the large vessels that supply the arm and hand with blood. The largest artery is the brachial artery that travels across the front crease of the elbow. If you place your hand in the bend of your elbow, you may be able to feel the pulsing of this large artery. The brachial artery splits into two branches just below the elbow: the ulnar artery and the radial artery. These two branches continue into the hand.
Okay, so I gave you that one, but I'm going to go re-emphasize. So the arteries are important. They kind of follow the same pathway essentially as the nerves do. Okay, but I want to go back to this. This is going to be critical in understanding this picture that you're seeing on your screen is going to be the most critical. This happens on either side. There's the ulnar nerve and the radial nerve. Okay. So both sides can have this tunnel created out of ligament and tendon. Okay. Tendon and muscle. Okay. So as we overuse our muscles, we start to have tendons build up what? Scar tissue, different formations, tight muscles, like all of these things start to lead. Now, in my chiropractic perspective. If that joint, if the bone itself wasn't sitting exactly where it's supposed to sit, you could see where this nerve would have an issue, right? So as it's going, let's go back. So let's say if we look at this and I move that elbow not there, but slightly in or out on either direction, you would have issues, right? So that's where the chiropractic is massively important, but not just at this elbow, at the shoulder, at the wrist, everything else. Okay. So I thought that was a really good video. Hopefully you like that one. But that's the key. A lot of times it is an entire situation where it's the neck, the upper back, into the shoulder itself to your elbow and wrist. Okay. And then the wrist by itself can even do some things. So let me see if there's any other videos I want to show you right now. I think we're good. Yeah. So let's keep going. Let's keep going on our slideshow. I have some more to show. I just want to, this is where I just want you to emphasize that elbows, the key is overall everything treatment. Okay. Overall everything. Okay. And then I'll tell you the story of my my one patient that we still laugh. She's still a monthly person after 7 years after we talked about it. So the treatment philosophy, you need to stack the deck. Okay. It can't just be like one thing. Okay. And that's one of the hardest parts of, especially a chronic elbow issue. They're so debilitating that people are willing to go get major surgery, major injection type situations that you put in an injection in an area that's already injured. It's not the greatest move, especially when it comes to the elbow, but that's the options we have because it can be so debilitating. So treating only the elbow, like pathology, whatever it is, itis, whichever one is there, okay, is like treating only the knee in a patient with hip weakness and bad feet. Okay. You have to address the entire causation. And so my job as a chiropractor is to restore the entire neuromechanical function across the entire kinetic chain and then load the tissues appropriately. Okay. So what we would do, or some of the things you must look at, is better. So like, let's say we're talking at home. So making sure that we have our cervical and thoracic spine in a great framework, in a powerhouse, in well adjusted, working well. Of course, elbow joint, we want to make sure it's mobilized, it's moving correctly. There's soft tissue techniques that you can use. Biggest thing is understanding that the reason I stayed on that one picture was because it's a tendon muscle. A lot of times, if we restore the function to all of the joints of that area, of the whole upper back and spine and all those, and we're still having issues, a lot of times it's because the chronicity has gotten so bad. There's ligament and tendon. There's a lot of tendon overgrowth as far as scar tissue, muscle belly atrophy, like a lot of different things that can get into that tunnel. Once that occurs, there's more work to do. And that's where the soft tissue stuff comes in. So soft tissue means tendon work and muscle work. Okay. So, and ligament work. So you have those three. Now there's another one called fascia. Fascia is pretty similar to tendons, I would say. It's a fascinating other whole. We'll have to do now that I say that, that'd be cool to show you guys what fascia is actually. But as you're going, you have this area that is an issue. And so now let's say you've done it. You've gotten your cervical spine adjusted, corrected, your upper back's doing good. Now we've adjusted your shoulder Now we go after that elbow, we redo the mechanics, all of that's working, and those kind of issues come. Now we know essentially that there's some muscle and tendon issues. So then we're going to go in there and we got to go after it. So that's where soft tissue therapies are really good. Massage, this thing called gua sha, I love. It's a fantastic one that a lot of people don't think about. That's super amazing with getting adjusted or the soft tissue is low level laser technology or low level laser treatment with is what we have in the office. It is fantastic. It allows those when you have scar tissue, a lot of times you have cells that are slower going. It's kind of having scar tissue is kind of like you can get the car running, but it just doesn't seem great, right? Not like a brand new car, right? Let's say you can turn that motor over, you can hear it kind of getting it going. What low level laser does a lot of times is energize and give healing energy right to the area. And so we've seen huge results with this, adding that on top of these other things with soft tissue getting adjusted, all those kind of things. Trigger point therapy would come under that soft tissue. And then this other one that people don't realize is it's called kinesiotaping. So like kinesiotape is a way, it's not a brace. So like people think taping, it's for support, and that's actually not true. Kinesiotaping is about getting that motion back in the right direction. And that's why it's kind of funny when I have athletes do it. Parents will be like, well, I'll try. And then they'll do the same. They will even take pictures and all that kind of thing. But then the athlete always wants, Jeremy or you or whatever doctor to do the taping again because we know how the joint is moving. And so sometimes that tape tries to tell the brain in what they call proprioception, hey, move this way so that the mechanics of the elbow are working properly as well. So biggest thing is understanding that we have to get better motion into that elbow pop. Maybe it could be any of these other places. So we don't know until we get in there, but we do know that the elbow most of the time is not the cause of what's happening. Okay. It's usually some other mechanical area. And all this stuff that I just showed you could be a potential that is really, really tough on you. Okay. So let's say we're going to take care of a major chronic issue. One of the things that happens in chiropractic, especially, is a lot of times, I don't know. The elbow is one. I really try to tell people, listen, you have to stick with some kind of program, right? I'm a big one of self-care in the sense of you do what you want most of the time. You get a chronic elbow, you get a chronic wrist, something that's there a long time and it's starting to concern you. Elbows are one of those that you only have two of them. And eventually, if you can't move them, the surgical options and all that stuff are awful they change your life essentially. And so a lot of times I would say stick to something that is in the holistic, non-shot, non-drug, all of those things as long as you can, because when it is not the main hub. So if the elbow is caused by something else, once we understand what it's caused by, and we really start working that, let's say our shoulder is all a wreck, right? So we work that shoulder and we finally get it to that point, the elbow is going to respond. And then once the elbow is able to respond, you can literally watch your body improve each and every day. Like I said before, I played college football, had a few shoulder injuries, but understanding the process of how much that I was going, to have to improve. And that was a physical therapist, to get through all of these different things. I literally had so much confidence in what I could do with my shoulders. It almost made you a little too confident. But understanding how to do the self-care on these things is a big deal. And so that's where tonight, hopefully, I'll give you some of those things. So this is what you want to really go through. This is how long it could take. Okay. So pain relief and the tissue healing could take up from 1 to 2 weeks for like a not very long process until the pain is down to like a 3. Okay. So it's not going to go totally away, but it's pretty close. So it might take 1 to 2 weeks to do that. Then the next part is strengthening it so that the mechanics and everything don't come back on you. This could be 2 to 6 plus weeks. So it could take another 2 months to do that same thing. I'm going through that with a patient right now. His gut is messed up and he's not being impatient. He just didn't know that it wouldn't take, 3 months to get you back to a normal process in the gut health department. A chronic elbow injury could be just as bad that way. So anyway, so phase 3 is the last one. Getting back to basically normal could be another 8 to 10 weeks, those kind of things. So you're going to be in it on an elbow for a pretty significant period of time. Okay. So we're going to go through each one of I think I got everything in here. Yeah. So let's do the videos. Let me see if that's what I got next. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to go through a few of these videos now, and then we should be sitting pretty good. Okay. So I'm going to show you, our first one is nerve glides. Okay. So I want to show you that. So there's self-myofascial release. I'll explain this one because you know what this looks like. So, and as for my podcasters as well. So this is, if you look up YouTube, even self-myofascial release on the elbow, just put those keywords in. You're going to find 100 videos on how to do this for the elbow. You use a lacrosse ball or a foam roller on the forearm extensors, the pecs, and the thoracic spine. And you try to do 1 to 2 minutes per area. So you do this like foam roller on the upper back. You can roll it on your forearms, like get all those, move through there. Eccentrics are movements that you don't have a lot of joint motion, but you're trying to get the contraction happening. So I think I got dang it. I'll look and see if I got a video for that. But let's talk about the nerve glides first, because I definitely do. Okay. So let's do this one. I forgot. This one's pretty good. Okay. All right. Let me share the screen. Man. Okay. So let's go. I think. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to go through, this guy's going to do a nerve glide. Okay. So this one is a radial nerve glide. Oh, let me do.
Then you bring keep your arms equally apart here, shoulders, level. You take the affected side and reach down toward the floor. While you do that, you bring the hand back like you're accepting a tip from somebody. And then you bring the arm out to this side. Now you're going to stop when you feel this kind of a sharp pull go through the back of your arm. You're going to stop right there. Okay. And that you need to try to measure on your own so that you know how high you're able to get. So that once you do the exercises, you can retest this afterward. So here's how you do it. You reach down, hand palm up toward the ceiling. You bring the arm out to the side. And then what you do is, as you let the hand go back, you tilt the head to the opposite side. You bring the hand back and tilt your head toward the hand. And then back and forth 5 times, essentially making that nerve slide back and forth to help give it some better mobility. Once you've done 3 sets of 5 repetitions, then you should retest yourself again. So drop the arm, bring the hand back, take it out to the side while the head stays in a neutral position, and see if that arm gets up a little bit higher before you develop that tightness in your arm.
That was really good. So hopefully you guys saw that. So you're gonna put your arms on either side. You're gonna drop the affected arm. So your hands are facing the wall or your body away. So your hand placement is away. And this is the radial nerve glide. So I'm trying to podcast it as well. So you're standing, you have your arms next to your side, and now you're going to turn your hands towards the back wall or your butt. Now you're going to take the affected side. So let's say it's your right elbow that you're having issues. You're going to drop your right elbow your right shoulder kind of down. And then you're going to ask for a cup of water behind you in that hand. Okay. So then you're going to tilt, you're going to stay in that neutral and see how far up you can go with your arm. And then wherever that pain is, that is the stretch you want to do on either side. Okay. So now one way to do that is to get what they call their nerve glide works. Think about the biggest thing on a lot of these nerve glides is when you're doing them, think of the wires that you saw in that video I showed you. So you had all these nerves and everything, right? And they all start in your neck and they all go all the way to your fingers. So what's the best way to give your nerves some space is to give it slack, to understand you're trying to give slack. So I tell a patient all the time, imagine if me and you were building a wall, and we got to put electrical wire through, and you're saying, hey, give me some slack, right? So that slack, I'm going to try to give you more than you need. So when your body is out, and let me move over just a little bit. So if your hand is way out, so if you all take your hand, you're going to fly an airplane. Okay. So we're going to take that. You're going to take your right arm and do that. Now, if I tip my hand down or up, that's as far as that nerve ever has to travel, is me putting that arm up or down. Now, that by itself is a nice floss. You just move your arm up or down. Now, to really push it, you tip your head away from your arm. Yeah, so away from that arm. And then you do that same thing. And when you do that, as you're moving it back and forth, you're giving that nerve some slack to get through all of those joints. Okay. And so it's a very simple process, but really, really good. This is where physical therapists, they do a good job. So that was radial nerve. I'm going to show you another one. And this one's a floss. This is just the ulnar nerve flossing. All right. Okay. So stay right there. So ulnar nerve is a little different, but it's definitely worth. Ulnar nerve is going to be your more common, and it'll also help with neck and upper back as well. But these are super simple. Okay. Nerve flossing for the ulnar nerve. Okay. So she's doing, that is one way to do it. is to kind of make this circle and then come all the way and do that. Now, a lot of times she's more flexible than a lot of us. So when she's doing this motion, so what she's doing is making a 6. This will be like one of those conspiracy videos. She's doing that eye thing. So you want to take, there's a 6 that you're going to make with your fingers, and then you're going to come up to your eye, and you're going to try to get to flex your elbow. I can't even hardly do that. It's so tight through there. And then you try to get your elbow up to that level. Hopefully this will make some sense on the podcast. I apologize. But look up nerve flossing for the ulnar nerve if on podcasting. That is one way to do it. Yeah, it is very, very tough. And then she's going to do one other one, I believe. No, I think that's it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you one as well that I really like. That's a little more basic. So she's kind of coming up and trying to like get her eye. If I didn't have glasses on, it'd be much better. But she's trying to get that shoulder all the way up to make the whatever that symbol is for whatever the conspiracy thing is. Maybe that's why I was on there, because then they can take screenshots of me trying to do that. I don't know. But I mean, the 1% tribe is getting hugely popular. So what we're also going to do is you're going to you can actually have your arms out on either side and then tip your head back and forth, and do a lot of those kind of situations. Okay. All right, man, I'm running behind. Sorry, guys, but those are the 2 flosses I wanted to show you. And then stretching with your wrist flexion and wrist extension, really good. The other one that I want you to understand too is ergonomics. Okay, so we're going to talk about this because this is probably where a lot of it's coming from. And let's talk about that one, because then we don't have to switch to the video yet. Let me get to there. Okay. Okay. So essentially, contrast therapy is a really good one. Ice 10 minutes for when it's acute, and then heat for the stiffness, and you go back and forth. That's really, really good especially for elbow injuries, those kind of things. Always ice first though, guys. Always ice first. And if you heat, you must make sure you ice. Okay. That's just a critical. Tendons are inflamed. It's an itis. You don't heat an itis. You heat a tendon strain, or I'm sorry, a muscle strain. You don't heat ligament or tendon itises that are swollen. Okay. Sleep. One of the things before we go into this next video is a lot of times we flex our elbows at night. We tuck like little babies underneath, but we've worked our hands all day and every day. And so because these elbows get so inflamed, it starts to trap some stuff, right? And so a lot of times as we get bigger, let's say you're a bodybuilder or getting into weightlifting, those elbows are inflamed from the use that they've been through. And so we want to make sure that we don't tighten up our elbows and wrists. Everybody thinks I'm a miracle. I'm like, oh, quit sleeping on your elbow. Oh, they hear about that all the time. Okay. But the big thing is just give yourself some time on making sure this gets better at each time. So let's show you. I want to show you the ergonomic slideshow real quick. This is one of the things you really, really need to pay attention to. The only way you're going to notice this is through taking a picture of yourself, like at work, or have someone do it in the posture you typically are. So one of the problems is this is this is the typical situation we got. Okay, so we're very slouchy, and when that happens, we look at where our shoulder from where we were talking, our elbow and our wrist are. Okay, so what we want to do is we want your pelvis to be 90. I'm sorry, essentially you want your legs to be about 90 degrees. Okay, there's a couple little tricks to this, but so there's 90. Okay. We don't want to slouch, so we want to be up high enough. Okay. So your shoulder is over your hip still. Okay. So when you're even sitting, you want your elbow over your hip. That will help tremendously. All right. Straight back, that would be good. Yes. So we want a 90 degrees with our shoulder and elbow, or else you start getting the wrist and tendon issues. Okay. Okay. So there's quite a few bits to this, the ergonomics of but the ergonomics you can see. So we want our pelvis in a situation where we're 90 degrees from the floor, and our shoulder, think about where your shoulder is watching this video. Is your shoulder, could you draw a straight line to your hip joint? Could you do that? No. A lot of you will be too far forward or too far backwards, right? And all of those lead to different situations. If you just try and kind of visualize in the next few days that shoulder being over your hips, that will make a massive difference. A massive difference. Okay, so that's what the ergonomics. The biggest one by far, elbow, wrist pain, shoulder, all of it. The way our ergonomics are. Usually it's something like that. Remember how I say thoughts, toxins, trauma? These are little micro traumas that happen when you sit for 8 hours a day. That's why it's super critical to understand your body and how that works. Okay. So you have to make sure you're looking at your whole ergonomic evaluation. A patient of mine, come in with a video camera, like take a picture of you from the side, have one of your workers do that. Okay. Big difference. Okay. So now let's go through some. I thought I'd be blasting right through the old elbow, but there's some good stuff in here. So nutritional supplementations that we can help with the healing. Okay. So without getting too deep in the weeds, anti-inflammatory diet. If you understand what that is, like one that's called the Mediterranean, things that are anti-inflammatory in general, veggies, meat, fat, right? So trying to stay in that way, no seed oils, those kind of things. Fatty fish, berries, turmeric, greens, olive oil. Okay. So all of these different things could be a very core key to what's happening. Okay. Always the case, even if it's one elbow bursitis. Sometimes I've seen it, honestly. Anti-inflammatory diet has literally changed it all. Once we got everything in mechanical alignment, the diet seemed to really take it off. Big protein thing, avoid processed crap. You know what I'm saying? Fake sugars, processed foods, all garbage, especially if you're sitting for a living 8 hours a day at a computer. Okay. Key nutrients to think about. That's what I want you to think about. Vitamin C, 500 to 1,000 milligrams a day. It's really, really good for collagen rebuilding. Also, I'm not sure yet on the collagen peptides. That's kind of a new thing. I had to throw it in there because they're saying it's really, really good. The word is out, but it could be something, right? So omega-3s, 2 to 3 grams of EPA, DHA. Omega-3 fatty acids are fantastic for ligament and your ligament and tendon health. And then these key components of minerals: copper, manganese, zinc, right? Copper, manganese, and zinc are three. So not only will you have good collagen, you probably ain't gonna get that sick either. So that's a thing, right? Hydration. There, you want to make sure you're drinking water. You have to hydrate your tendons and your and your ligaments. That helps a ton. If they can't get the nutrients, then how's that supposed to work? And so many people are dehydrated when that occurs. Some advanced ones that we can think about are curcumin. Remember, curcumin is kind of the yellow supplement substance in like a turmeric, right? So curcumin is the active compound that takes anti-inflammatory away. Bromelain is another one that's from pineapple. And then one of the big supplements we have in our office has both of those in: curcumin, turmeric. So black pepper, piperine can help activate the curcumin. And so that's really cool. Bromelain has a really good thing. It's a pineapple supplement. And then sometimes white willow bark can help with the actual pain of it. So let's look at some other ones. Turmeric. Sometimes turmeric with the curcumin. Okay. You want to do about 500 to 1,000 milligrams of it daily, and try to do as much as you can for the fresh turmeric. Ginger's the other one that could be really good. Boswellia is another good one. Boswellia, I'm super interested in because I think it's got some superpowers that a lot of us don't talk about. I'm going to try to look and see. I might do a whole thing on that because next week's our herbal talk. So I'm trying to find a good herb. In the comments, also find out, think in terms of herbs. Arnica is a great cream for ligament healing. Cat's claw is a huge antioxidant, but it also helps with tendon irritations. So that's a really good one. Bromelain, like we talked about, from pineapple, and then devil's claw or white willow bark for pain. So those are some of your major herbals. Okay, so now the last piece. So we went through the nutritional stuff, right? Hopefully you got that. I was going a little fast. I can't believe I'm over an hour. I try to keep these at an hour for everybody, but I apologize. It was one of those days of just almost getting there. So what we do tonight, though, is another thing that can really stimulate it, right? Epigenetics and our subconscious programming. So sometimes a physical condition can manifest itself from thoughts that actually happen. And tonight we're going to go over some of those. Each night we do a condition like this. I'd like to throw it out there because we don't know, right? We don't know if let's say we did all the alls and we're still having the problem. Maybe it's a subconscious program that's linked to these things. This will be from this thing called, this technique called Psych K, and this lady named Louise Hay. Louise Hay had the conscious manifestation of something that's happening. As far as a pain goes, what does that mean in the mental piece of that? Okay. So now the elbow, so it'll make sense as we talk. Okay. Elbows represent our ability to change directions and flow with new experiences. Pain or stiffness in the elbows often signals emotional rigidity. I don't want to bend or pivot in this area of my life. It can reflect feeling stuck, resisting a new job, relationship shift, move, or personal growth opportunity. You may be holding on to old patterns, fearing the unknown, or feeling unable to embrace what's next. Common underlying emotions: fear of change, inflexibility in mindset, resentment about having to adapt, or a sense that life is forcing you in a direction you're not ready for. So these are all things that could be there. Understand they're not. your elbow hurts and it must be I'm worthless based on this. That is not how this goes. You could have had your shoulders messed up because of it. Like we said, there's always an underlying thing physically, right? It could be your shoulder, it could be your cervical spine, it could be any of those areas. Okay. And so one of the things to know though is if I have a good mantra, if I can say, hey, something happened. Now, with my elbow injury, I remember it was the first time I had ever gotten injured. I had a major knee injury that was going to set me back to if I was going to play football again, which as a kid, that is a big trauma to on my life trajectory. It was changing that football wasn't going to be, the biggest thing that was part of this life. Right. So you could see how it could connect where I started having an elbow thing that just kind of popped up out of nowhere. Right. What if I knew that and then I adapted better with my subconscious programming? So that's what this whole idea is in the thought aspect. So here's some affirmations that you can do. If you miss any of these, make sure you are a subscriber at tribe1, trib1.substack.com. And then maybe you get the newsletter and then you can find all the stuff we talked about tonight. And I think it's Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday night. So there you go. If you want to find out. So your affirmation, I easily flow with new experiences, new directions, and new changes. This is another one. I am flexible and open to changes, directions in my life with joy, with ease and joy. Here's another one. I effortlessly embrace new experiences and opportunities that support my highest good. And then my last one, my body is strong, flexible, and pain-free as I flow with life's changes. So that, my friends, dear Lord, I'm sorry it's an hour and 10 tonight, is what we got going. So start looking at that. My biggest recommendation is to start doing those nerve flosses. Look up radial nerve floss and ulnar nerve floss. And if you have an elbow condition, the other one is come out and find out what it's actually doing. Come to a chiropractor, do your thing. Tons of great soft tissue work, muscle balance situations could all be in the right direction and just give you that confidence that you can heal this. And elbows can be one of the biggest ones. And it's very traumatic if not. I'll leave you with this story that I wish and just remember, just try some of these supplements, do all the, look at these mantras, but just remember this story. I had a lady, I still see her every month pretty much since this occurred. I was adjusting this lady and it was fantastic. She getting her low back adjusted, her neck, all the normals. And one day she comes in and I had never noticed it before, but because she never had anything on her elbow, but she had just went through treatment of like 7 injections into her elbow. And I'm like, oh my God, what did you have done? And then she was telling me I've had this elbow injury or issue for a really long time. And this is my third trip in for the shoulder, these elbow ones that just nothing else was fixing it. And the reason I'm bringing up this story is because it was kind of one of those that you kind of wish you would have told her, or like, God, I'm trying to do better at making sure that patients know all the alls. I go, do you know chiropractic? We can check you out on your elbow. Did you know that? And she's like, no, I had no idea. You guys check elbows? I go, yeah, we do wrists, elbows, shoulders. They all have joints in them and we can check the mechanics of them. So I go, do you mind me checking yours? She's like, not a problem. So I go, well, let's wait until you got the bandage off and let the shot do its thing. And then we'll check it. So just don't let me forget. So a few weeks goes by. It was, so as we were going, like a few weeks go by and she's like, yeah, it feels like the the elbow, the shots are wearing off, and I'm like, well, let's see what happens. So I adjusted her elbow, and it got better. It got better almost instantaneously. Now, in the next, I say, hey, listen, this might be just one of those things. She's like, holy crap, that feels so much better. And then, in 2 to 3 days, I needed to see you again just to make sure. And she's like, Jeremy, it is gone. It is gone from then. But like Brian is saying here, Brian says, my elbow went out. My entire right side was almost non-functional, straight up. That's how bad these can be. And so you must take care of it, because what happens is that what she was going through just in her whole thing, she said to me before all that, she had spent $6,000, something like that, some crazy number, and I go, well, you live and learn. I wish I would have told every patient in the planet, right when you come in, here's a list of everything that chiropractic can do. And I believe in that strongly now. So I'm trying to do that. Here's all the stuff. Here's all the joints. Here's all the things that if you ever need anything in these areas, let us know. Right. And that's a big part of chiropractic that is tough, because you think low back headaches, those kind of things, unless you get into it a little bit, like a few of my people are out there, that they get what that is. Understanding the function of each joint and understanding how to get it to where it needs to go is such a beautiful thing. But all right, I've kept you too long. Y'all need to get in bed for the next week. Beginning of June should be glorious. But do not forget about Wednesday night, 8:30. We do Whole Health Weekly. It'll be super fun. That's where we go over new things. Yeah, I know. Isn't that cool? The adjustment to the elbow is so fantastic. I mean, there's more to it, but that thing, when your elbow is hurting, Brian knows it's like ridiculous, like how you can go from debilitated to that. And it's a fun one for chiropractors. It's a really fun one too, because you get to see that it's just so much better, and those kind of things. But Whole Health Weekly, 8:30, we go over all the health trends. Don't forget, Prize Inside on Rumble, Prize Inside on YouTube, thumbs up, like, all those things. Tribe1, trib1.substack.com. Love you all. You guys have a great week. It's going to be beautiful. Peace out. Have a good one.